the battle between DeWanna Bonner, Alyssa Thomas versus A'ja Wilson. Question. Are we talking about 3 of the 4 most unlikable athletes that this league has to offer? Question mark? In one damn finals?
The WNBA Finals were supposed to be the league's crowning moment. The biggest stage, the brightest lights, a chance for the reigning MVP, A'ja Wilson, to remind the world why she's been called the face of women's basketball for years. But when the cameras panned across the arena during Game 2, something was terribly, painfully wrong. Rows and rows of empty seats. Silence where there should have been roaring.
Well, I got some bad news. Number one, I don't think none of y'all are doing any pre-WNBA prep. I don't think none of y'all are fired up for no games. None of that. In fact, I believe y'all don't care. I think y'all care about the drama around it. I do believe that, but I don't think you care.
Fans. An atmosphere so flat you could hear the basketball echo off the hardwood. And in the middle of it all stood A'ja Wilson, visibly seething, her frustration impossible to hide. Because deep down, she knew exactly why nobody showed up. And according to insiders, she wasn't shy about saying the name out loud. Caitlin Clark. Let's rewind for a second. This was supposed to be A'ja's moment. The Las Vegas Aces were back in the finals, defending their championship. Wilson had just won another MVP award. She'd put up monster numbers all season long, dominating in the paint, leading her team with the kind of intensity that separates good players from legends. On paper, this series against the Connecticut...
Neither does anybody else. Wow. If ever there was proof that the Caitlin Clark fans / Fever fans are now the overwhelming majority of the fandom, look at ticket prices.
Sun should have been must-see TV. 2 powerhouse teams, elite talent on both sides, a battle for supremacy. But when the lights came on and the game tipped off, the energy in the building was lifeless. It felt less like a championship and more like a preseason scrimmage nobody cared about. Social media didn't hold back. Within minutes of tip-off, fans were posting photos of entire sections sitting completely vacant. Ticket prices that had dropped to laughable lows. $35 for a finals game. $42 for decent seats. People were making jokes, saying you could get into the WNBA Finals cheaper than a decent dinner. The memes started flying. Comparisons to high school gyms. Screenshots of arenas from earlier in the season when Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever were playing.
Holy hell, there's $35 seats right there. Right there. Plenty of good seats available. $46, $42.
Packed wall to wall. Fans screaming. Tickets being scalped for hundreds of dollars. The contrast was brutal. It wasn't subtle. It was impossible to ignore. And A'ja Wilson felt every bit of it. Athletes are wired to feed off the crowd. The noise, the energy, the adrenaline that comes from thousands of people locked into every possession. But when Wilson looked up into those stands and saw nothing but emptiness, something inside her snapped. Courtside reporters later described her demeanor as tense, frustrated, almost defeated. She wasn't just upset about the game. She was upset about what it represented. Because
this should scare the league to death. With DeWanna Bonner, Alyssa Thomas, and the Mercury in the finals against A'ja Wilson and the Aces, will you be locked in watching this series? Question mark. Yes or no? Hit the poll. 4% of brave souls said yes. 96% said hail to the no.
This wasn't just a bad attendance night. This was a statement. The fans were telling the league loud and clear that without Caitlin Clark, they simply didn't care. Now here's where it gets messy. Multiple sources close to the situation claim that during timeouts and halftime, A'ja was venting hard. And the target of her frustration wasn't the league's marketing team or the fans.
If the Fever and Caitlin Clark was playing in a finals game, let's say against the Mercury, with all that drama around there, would there be a single ticket less than $300? Now, I mean, honestly, a single ticket less than $300. I don't think so. I think you'd have courtside seats go for $5,000.
Didn't show up. It was Caitlin Clark. Even though Clark wasn't even in the building, even though her season had ended weeks earlier when the Fever were knocked out in the playoffs, her presence, or rather her absence, was the only thing anyone could talk about. And for someone like Aya Wilson, who had spent years being told she was the face of the WNBA,
you are not interested in watching this BS transpire on your television set.
Reality had to sting like nothing else. Think about it from her perspective for a second. She's won championships. She's won MVPs. She's been the model of consistency and dominance in a league that's fought tooth and nail for respect. And then this rookie comes in, this college sensation from Iowa, and suddenly the entire sports world flips upside down. Arenas that used to struggle
was playing if she was in these finals along with the Fever. Now you know why we conveniently did not hear anything about the ankle, blah, 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 and I won't be coming back until the season was basically over. The WNBA was very aware of what that was going to do to ticket prices, etc.
To hit 70% capacity are now selling out in minutes. TV ratings that hovered in the low hundreds of thousands are suddenly spiking into the millions. Caitlin Clark didn't just bring attention. She brought a cultural shift. A tidal wave of new fans who had never watched women's basketball before were suddenly buying jerseys, learning the rules, and showing up.
I can't wait to see the ratings for this. Because I did see where that semifinals game against the Aces and the Fever drew like 1.8 million viewers, I think, is what it was. Will they get half of that for this finals? Will they get half of the viewership?
Droves. But here's the thing. Those fans weren't just WNBA fans. They were Caitlin Clark fans. And when her season ended, they left. They didn't stick around for the finals. They didn't care about Aya Wilson versus Alyssa Thomas. They didn't care about legacy matchups or elite defense or any of the things the league wanted to sell. They cared about the story, the excitement, the connection they felt watching Clark play. And without her, the finals felt hollow. Like watching a movie where the main character doesn't show up. The viewership numbers told the whole story. When the Fever played the Aces in the semifinals, the ratings were massive. Over 1.5 million people tuned in. It was one of the most watched WNBA games in years. But then Clark's team got eliminated, and the numbers fell off a cliff. Estimates suggest the finals drew less than half that audience. Some reports even claimed it was closer to a third. For a league that had been celebrating record-breaking growth just weeks earlier, this was a nightmare scenario. All that momentum, all that hype, all those new fans, gone in an instant. And Aya Wilson had to stand there and play through it. Cameras caught her on the bench during a timeout, slamming her towel down in frustration. Her body language screamed anger, not just at the game, but at the situation, at the league, at the narrative that had taken over. Because no matter how well she played, no matter how dominant she was on the court, the story wasn't about her. It was about the player who wasn't even there. Fans online were brutal. They posted side-by-side comparisons. Fever games versus finals games. Packed arenas versus ghost towns. The message was clear. One player is the draw. Everyone else is just background noise. It didn't help that the league's leadership was nowhere to be found. Commissioner Kathy Engelbert, who had been so vocal earlier in the season when ratings were soaring, suddenly went radio silent. No statements. No acknowledgement of the empty seats. No plan to address the elephant in the room. Fans noticed. They called it out. Said she was quick to take credit when Caitlin Clark was filling arenas, but vanished the second her stars couldn't do the same. The optics were terrible. It looked like the league was in denial, hoping the problem would go away if they just ignored it long enough. But the problem wasn't going away. If anything, it was getting worse. Social media exploded with polls asking fans if they were watching the finals. Out of thousands of responses, less than 5% said yes. 95% said no. Many added that they only watched when Caitlin Clark played. It wasn't even close. The finals, the supposed pinnacle of the WNBA season, had become irrelevant. A viral afterthought. People were joking that they'd rather watch paint dry, that they'd tune back in when Clark returned. The disrespect was palpable, and it wasn't just coming from casual fans. Even diehard supporters of the league were admitting they hadn't bothered to watch. For Aya Wilson, this had to feel personal. She's a competitor, a champion, someone who thrives on being the best. But none of that mattered if nobody cared. And the worst part? She couldn't even fight back. What was she supposed to say? That the fans were wrong? That they should appreciate her greatness? That would only make her look entitled. So instead, the frustration boiled over in other ways. In her body language, in her tone during interviews, in the way she seemed to carry the weight of the league's failures on her shoulders. Behind the scenes, whispers started circulating that NBA Commissioner Adam Silver was paying close attention. The NBA has been the financial backbone of the WNBA since its inception, and Silver's patience was reportedly wearing thin. He'd invested millions into building the league's reputation, and what he saw during the finals looked like regression. Empty arenas, bitter players, a fractured fan base. Reports suggested he was asking hard questions. How could a league with one of its most dominant stars fail to sell tickets for the championship? Why were headlines focused on jealousy and drama instead of basketball? And most importantly, how had leadership let things spiral so far out of control? Some insiders claimed Silver's office was preparing a comprehensive review of the WNBA's direction. Translation? Heads might roll. If the commissioner couldn't fix the league's fractured identity, someone else would. Sponsors were getting nervous too. Major brands who had jumped on board during the Caitlin Clark wave wanted assurance their investment wasn't wasted. They weren't buying into a social experiment. They were buying into a product meant to grow audiences. And right now, that product was failing. The contrast between Aya Wilson and Caitlin Clark couldn't have been starker. Wilson demanded respect. She talked about haters and critics. She made it clear she felt overlooked. But Clark? She never said a word. She just played. She let her performance do the talking. And in doing so, she became the player everyone wanted to root for. Humble, hungry, exciting, the kind of star who transcends the sport. While Wilson was venting about media imbalance, Clark was building a connection with fans that went beyond basketball. She made people believe again, and when she wasn't there, that belief disappeared. By the end of Game 2, the damage was done. The finals had officially become background noise. A punchline, something people referenced only to mock how far the league had fallen without its biggest star. For Aya Wilson, the silence in that arena wasn't just disappointing. It was devastating. She'd worked her entire career to reach this moment, and when she got there, nobody showed up. The ghost of Caitlin Clark had won without even stepping on the court. The WNBA is at a crossroads now. It can either embrace the reality that one player changed everything and build around that momentum, or it can cling to pride and watch the fan base continue to shrink. Aya Wilson is still one of the greatest players the league has ever seen. But greatness means nothing if the crowd no longer believes you represent them. And right now, the crowd has made their choice. They're not watching for championships. They're watching for connection, for excitement, for Caitlin Clark. And until the league figures out how to recapture that magic, the empty seats will keep telling the story that nobody wants to hear. The WNBA's biggest moment became its most embarrassing. And Aya Wilson's frustration was just the beginning.